Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for coming out on this winter dry season night. I'm going to share kind of the federal perspective, give some time to let you see the real work that's being done here in Brevard County with the Save Our Indian River Lagoon program. And I can assure you, a lot is being done. In fact, I don't remember a 90-day period in my entire 40 years of work that are busier than this past month and the 2 months that are coming up. So I'm going to take you for a little ride for the moment. And the first thing I get asked everywhere I go, whether it's in a bar, or at an event like this, is how does the water look? And thankfully, right now, it doesn't look like these pictures, which we all remember, just in the last few years with brown tide up here, cyano blooms down south Lagoon, some strange red tides that weren't really red tides in Cocoa Beach. They were non-toxic, but I remember, I think Florida Today asked me what I thought, and I made the stupid comment that I thought it was biblical. It was right near Easter. And of course, it was Dr. Duane Freese says the red tide's biblical. So you got to be careful what you say with these water quality issues. But I'm really happy, to say that water quality is much improved this year. We have been blessed by good weather, and good weather for us is it's been dry. Not today, but it has been dry in general. And so if you want to look at the lagoon in general, we are flashy. The system can change overnight. Just a few weeks ago, Mayor Frank Gattino, who you may see here in a little bit, we took a ride out Grand Canal. Water quality was exceptionally clear. Almost 6-foot visibility, and 3 hours later when we came back, you could see little boiling blooms in the Grand Canal. So this system is vulnerable. It's going to remain vulnerable for a number of years until we can get the projects that are underway continuing to move forward, and it's all about nutrient reduction. But the good news for this year, which really shows the resilience of this system, and I think it shows our ability, if we give this system just a little bit of help, it will recover, is that we've seen about a 20% improvement in seagrasses. And this picture shows you that some of what you think, if you're out there and it looks really green, may actually not be seagrasses. It may be macroalgae. We prefer to have seagrasses, but we're glad to see some of the sediments having vegetation because it stabilizes things. So we're hoping the weather continues to help us out, but the bottom line is it's going to be infrastructure improvements that will improve this lagoon over the long haul. And I want to show you what we're doing at the National Estuary Program and give you a bigger perspective about what's happening. And really, this is all about the plumbing. It's about, old, antiquated, and insufficient wastewater treatment plants. It's about septic systems. We have about 300,000 septic systems in the Indian River Lagoon. The state of Florida does not inspect them, and so it's difficult to know which are working, which aren't, but 100% of those tanks all deliver nitrogen and phosphorus to groundwater. We have muck in the system. We have large and small stormwater. And so when I get asked, and I know you may ask this question later tonight, what should we do first? The answer isn't putting these all in a line. We have to do all of this. And so for the city of Oak Hill, it's going to be septic to sewer. For some other areas, it may be large stormwater, but we need to move every project we can with the money that we have to take nutrients and other pollutants out of this system and stop them at the source. And we are in a moment. I was just up in Tallahassee all day yesterday, and everywhere I went, it was about the challenges of infrastructure for the state of Florida. This is a national dilemma. It is going to be expensive, but if we are going to have healthy communities in the future, we're going to need to make those infrastructure improvements that are necessary in order to not just handle the population today, but the population that's coming every day. So there is a cost of doing nothing, and we're bearing some of that cost today because we've not put enough emphasis on operation and maintenance and upgrades on these systems. And this is what we look like from a population standpoint. we're bringing about 850 to 1,000 people a day into the state. So we are at pre-recession levels. We are going to see double-digit growth in the 5 counties along the lagoon, with the greatest percentage growth actually to the south of us in Indian River County and St. Lucie County, as many of those agricultural lands begin to transition away from citrus. You know, a lot of those lands are now fallow because of the challenges of citrus into homes. And so we have got to not just fix the problem for today, but for this growth that isn't coming, it's coming now. So this is a real issue that needs to be addressed both in our planning and our infrastructure. And I really took a lot of time to find this, but I thought, wouldn't it be cool to show you what kind of Satellite Beach area looked like? This is an aerial photo of just south of here. So the southern part, tip of Merritt Island, 1943 and today. And so if you ask, well, how did we get to this place where we are struggling with water quality? This is how we did it. That we lost our wetlands, we grew remarkably fast in the state of Florida, and we just not knowing really how to build in concert, you know, with clean water, are dealing with the impact. So each of us, every citizen, every city, every county, every state agency, we all have work to do, and we all have challenges. So where does the NEP comes in? National estuary programs were dedicated by the U.S. Congress, and so we have 28 estuaries that are identified as estuaries of national significance, and the Indian River Lagoon is celebrating its 30th year in the program. What is remarkable about that congressional vision is that back then Congress decided that there was a way we could do some of this work without regulating, that we need to bring people together, industries and citizens, scientists and community leaders, identify problems and work together to solve them. And we are doing that and have been doing it for a long time. But in 2011, after the super bloom, and 2016, the fish kill, we recognized we had to do this differently. And so in 2015, we completely restructured the National Estuary Program to better address those issues, but more importantly, to better work with local communities like Satellite Beach and the 38 unincorporated cities along this lagoon, so there was equal standing between local and state and federal agencies. And you see that now beginning to show in the success and work of our program. And I'm proud to say it's not the work of me and my staff, it's the work of you all as you work with us. We are all organized around this network governance model. So I report to a citizen oversight committee that's actually over 100 individuals. 3 committees uniquely focused on different aspects of how we work. A management board that are mainly managers and folks that are managing land and water. A science advisory board that's scientists, over 23 research organizations, and then a citizens advisory committee. And they advise up to my policy board, which is the 5 counties, 2 water management districts, DEP, and the United States Environmental Protection Agency stands in as an advisory member. So together, we have mandates at the federal level, and the most important one is that every 10 years, we are mandated to relook at management and restoration, and then develop a comprehensive conservation management plan that reflects the needs for the next 10 years. Really proud and happy to say that we adopted the new plan in August. We are already utilizing that plan in every decision. It's online if you want to look at it. It is a long document, but that plan is based on a vital signs wheel that identified 32 areas of focus, all of which need to be addressed at some level. And when we went back to not only the citizens, but our management conference and said, you know, how do you rank these? We struggled with ranking because, you know, if you don't have the money, you can't do the work. And where do you get the money? So a lot of this is about prioritization and understanding what the linkages are. And you can see in this document that there were 6 areas that really stood out. One was funding, but most of the red areas relate to water quality and infrastructure. Wastewater, stormwater issues, and critical concerns about seagrasses. At one point, we were down 60% of the seagrass community in the lagoon, and the other is harmful algal blooms, which we are experiencing today. So we have blooms, small, going on as we speak today in certain areas of the lagoon. If you look at where we are, and this is just last year in a snapshot, we have a modest budget, about $2.3 million. 22 projects were funded last year, 18 were completed. This is just my program. You're going to see more when Virginia Barker comes up. We have taken a bold step to begin monitoring at a higher level for harmful algal blooms. So we are funding the statewide monitoring of those blooms. We're out here, 70 times and more, talking to you all as citizens and engaging. But most important is that we, for the first time, the first NEP in the nation, said let's start collecting a project list from everybody and see what this might cost if we look at the entire needs of infrastructure. So all 38 cities, 5 counties, state agencies, our federal partners started to send us projects. And I have a list of over 490 projects now on a list, about $2.6 billion in economic costs if they were all done. And I want to put that into a perspective here in a minute, because that is not all that will be needed to do the whole lagoon in its entirety and meet every need. And it's most important to remember, it's not going to take all that to get a healthy lagoon, but we are going to be investing billions to get to where we want to be. This year is actually exciting. Last week we received, I have 31 here, I think it was 33. So between 31 and 33 proposals. My staff are reviewing those right now along with lots of our committees. In 3 weeks we will bring those ranked proposals to our board of directors for funding for fiscal year 2021. But you can see we're working in water quality, habitat restoration, scientific research. We're doing a really neat project right here in Satellite to look at how nutrients flux off muck and how oxygen and other treatments might work. And also, working again on a lot of public engagements. So quickly, if you look at the actions we need to take, what do we need to respond to? What do we need to restore? What do we need to remove? When you start to add up the science, the infrastructure, climate change and sea level rise, we are looking at billions of dollars of need. And we're estimating about $4 to $5 billion to do the real work. And it doesn't have to happen right away. Some of this may be a decade or two down the road. And the first thing I hear is this: what? How are we ever going to pay for this? And the answer is that there are lots of revenue streams, federal, state, local. There are lots of mechanisms to do this. You don't do it all at once. You prioritize, you move forward. And we have seen in estuary after estuary, Chesapeake Bay, Narragansett Bay, Puget Sound, that if you fix infrastructure, if you reduce nutrients and other pollutants that get into the system will recover, and it will recover many times quicker than you might think if you put the right pressure in the right places. And so we are lucky, and in fact, you should all congratulate yourselves. When we passed the Save Our Indian River Lagoon half-cent sales tax, that was not just historic for Brevard, that was historic at a national level. When you look at the possibility, of $500 billion coming down the pipe over the next 10 years, $500 billion, 48 million coming in each year. We're talking about a lot of money. And so, did I say trillion? I'm sorry. I was up in Washington too, and I'm thinking about the federal stuff. So I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself. I was going, man, that budget, I got to get some projects on that. So you figure 48 million a year. We got $500 million coming in. You're going to see how well that money is working for you now, and it's going to accelerate with projects. And that is historic. It's what I call a catalytic investment. It has caught the attention of the people in Tallahassee. We have some things happening in Washington, which I'll mention in a second, that are making me excited. And so we are going to get there, and nobody needs to suffer along the way. We can do this as a community. We have evidence to show that it's worked other places, and it's just about staying at the game and moving forward. We're going to have, I wish I had it today, an annual report from last year, and we reached out to our partners and said, you know, we're doing all this work, almost 50 projects under contract last year. We'd like to see what you all are doing, and our partners sent 166 projects. So you're going to get a glimpse of what the county's doing, but that's not all. Every county and every city is moving forward with projects. In our annual report, which will be available in a few weeks, you'll be able to get a glimpse of some of those highlighted projects. And so we'll have that out shortly. And it's all about partnership. Nobody can do this alone. Satellite Beach can't do this as a city without local support from the state, support from the NEP, support from the feds, that together we can kind of cobble together our intelligence, you know, our expertise and our funds, and actually move this forward to a healthy lagoon. So I'll leave you with this last thought. A number of years ago, 2016, we had a couple independent studies done to look at the economic value of the Indian River Lagoon. It generates about $7.6 billion a year to our regional economy. So if I'm going to invest $4 billion to restore the system, and I'm getting $7.6 billion back, you know, that's not a bad return on investment. But these two independent projects looked at return on investment in real value terms. And in fact, for every dollar spent in restoration, somewhere between $20 and $33 of value are either preserved, you know, or gained. And so the return on investment for clean water is really, really high and well worth making. So where's that investment coming? You know, it's just up in Florida. Our new governor, Governor Ron DeSantis, has requested $625 million in recurring funds for water. The bill that's moving through in appropriations has some money earmarked specifically for Indian River Lagoon. We're early in the process, but I have high hopes that that water appropriation sticks. There are over 50 water bills and water appropriations just along the lagoon and statewide. They didn't want to bore you with every single one, but we have a number of bills being proposed by our local legislators right here in Brevard County and across the lagoon. Wait and see, you know, we'll just have to watch how they proceed through the process. But you can track those bills online. And so if you're so inclined to be a policy wonk, you know, you can go online and see which bills are moving forward. But I know we will see water funding through this legislative session. At the federal level, just two things I want to mention. For the first time in probably 2 decades, we got a slight increase in our federal budget coming from EPA for the National Estuary Program. It's not a lot of money. It was a 10% bump, but we're moving in the right direction. More importantly, we have to be reauthorized every 5 years. And I want to recognize David Jackson's here. Congressman Bill Posey has been a champion for us as a co-chair of the National Estuaries Caucus. Our legislative delegation in Washington has been strong for the NEP and very strong for the Indian River Lagoon. And I'm really happy to say we have reauthorization bills in the House and in the Senate. It's going to be a ways before they get through the process that are proposing reauthorization to double the amount of money available to each of those 28 national estuary programs. So we have a lot of work to do to get that passed, and then a lot of work every year to get those appropriations. But we have had strong support, both Democrat and Republican, for national estuaries and for the Indian River Lagoon. So with that, I'm just going to say the biggest issue here is one that you've already addressed, not just in Satellite Beach, but in Brevard County, and that's leadership. Incremental leadership, incremental decision-making, incremental funding simply is not going to get us what we want. That we need to have transformational leadership and transformational action, and that's going to take the catalytic investments like we have just made in Brevard County with our half-cent sales tax. And so we all should be proud of the start of this giant restoration effort. There's a lot going on, so thank you.